Turning to the research summary, our intention now is to provide an overview of the report which we recently published. The report was based on several months of work by BSR, the Danish Fashion Institute, and the Copenhagen Resource Institute. Our methodology included an extensive literature review, analysis of sustainable consumption campaigns, and limited discussions among stakeholders in the fashion industry. Our aim was to provide a baseline snapshot of definitions and activities related to sustainable fashion consumption, and to point towards barriers and solutions for transforming the industry. However, our research was merely a starting point, and there are a number of important limitations which were necessary to stay focused while covering such a broad topic. First, we did not analyze the impact of consumer behaviors on current or prospective business models in the fashion industry. We know that many enterprising folks, like yourselves, are looking into this, and we hope to learn from your successes and failures. Second, we have identified government policy options in the report, but only at a high level. We have not analyzed their potential costs and benefits. Third, we speak generally about consumers, but we all know the critical importance of understanding consumers as individuals and as communities, and the incredible diversity and richness of many distinct consumer segments. We hope this will be a priority for the industry going forward. Fourth, we are not running a consumer behavior change campaign yet. We do not currently have the resources that would be necessary to run a mass campaign, but we hope to be able to do so in the future. Finally, we are taking a broad and inclusive view of the fashion industry, from fast fashion to luxury, with a focus on apparel, but also including accessories, footwear, and other products. This broad view creates some challenges, obviously, but we also believe that transition towards sustainable fashion consumption is needed at every level and throughout the industry. All that said, we do hope that you find the report an interesting read and that the ideas and resources contained in the report are useful to you. We also very much want your feedback, which you can send to our email address at niceconsumer@bsr.org. Nice Consumer is all one word. So first, I'd like to give us a shared baseline for discussion, starting with two definitions which we consider to be works in progress. Sustainable fashion is an emerging set of design philosophies and business practices for managing triple bottom line impacts linked to the life cycle of apparel, footwear, accessories, and other fashion goods. It encompasses the conditions along the chain of consumer and industry activities, such as design, raw material sourcing, production, distribution, and retailing, consumption, and end of use. It considers a wide array of standards and practices, including conscious design, the humane treatment of animals, managing ecosystems impacts, ensuring human rights, labor standards, and social welfare of workers, use of non-toxic materials, cleaner, safer, and more efficient processes, low-impact consumer lifestyles, and creatively rethinking how to recycle, upcycle, or reuse fashion goods or the waste created. That's a lot. I should also add that as we see it, the real-world manifestation of sustainable fashion is still a long way away. There are many standards, for example, on working conditions and human rights, on humane treatment of animals, on wastewater effluent from textile mills and dyes that already exist. However, we know the landscape of standards is incomplete and evolving, and that their implementation is often challenging. We think there's a lot of work before the fashion industry is truly sustainable. Moving forward, sustainable fashion consumption is a subset of the sustainable fashion system. We define sustainable fashion consumption as the use of clothing for purposes beyond utilitarian needs, including identity making, and which is achieved without jeopardizing the ability of future generations to meet their needs. It includes consumer attitudes and behaviors that lead to reductions in the triple bottom line impacts of buying, wearing, caring for, repairing, and recycling fashion goods. Essentially, it is how we as consumers have an impact on people, the planet, and prosperity through our association with fashion. We recognize these definitions are incomplete or in need of improvement, and we would definitely like your comments We plan to update Wikipedia in the near future, and we encourage you to contribute to that definition as well. I'd like to turn now to our understanding of what sustainable fashion consumption means in practice. For the purposes of our research, we needed to stay focused on the consumer experience and how consumers participate in the fashion industry. This diagram depicts the fashion life cycle as a series of steps in the creation of fashion goods from the consumer's point of view. From top to bottom, they are design, retailing, production, use, and disposal. These aspects of the industry affect consumers by shaping their perception of needs and wants, their shopping behaviors, how they wear and care for garments, and their options for disposing them. We recognize an imperative to change this model to enable consumers to be aware of and to take control of the impacts of their choices. This includes creating a closer connection between consumers and designers through better feedback and participatory design. It also includes how the fashion industry advertises and markets products. For example, why not buy better, buy smarter as the key message for consumers rather than buy more, buy cheap? In addition to changes in how consumers shop, wear, and care for fashion goods, which we'll talk about in a moment, we also see improvements needed in the service economy for fashion and in the recycling infrastructure for unwanted fashion goods. We'll hear from Marks & Spencer about their take-back partnership with Oxfam in a little bit, which is one example of how to address the end-of-use phase impacts. So thinking about this nice consumer, how does she live her life? How does she experience fashion? In our research paper, we put forward a vision for the nice consumer and how she walks the walk to support sustainable fashion. We see her as a person who believes in the fair treatment of workers and the humane treatment of animals, and in the smart management of environmental impacts over the long term. We see her as a person who takes her wardrobe investment seriously and seeks to understand the origin, content, and supply chain of every item that she purchases. She also cares for each item to preserve its value, for example, by mending it at home or by working with her favorite seamstress. She has easy access to dispose of clothing responsibly when it no longer fits her style, and she has a voice in the evolution of fashion by connecting with designers on a very personal level. However, there are barriers to realizing this vision which keep the nice consumer from realizing her potential. First, there is a lack of information about products and their impacts. Sadly, we live in a world where transparency is lacking, and companies like Honest Buy and Patagonia, which showcase the life cycle impacts of products, warts and all, remain the exception rather than the rule. In addition, consumers have difficulty finding sustainable products. This is related to the lack of information, but it's difficult to know where to shop and what to look for. And very importantly, there is a barrier related to the price of sustainable products. All things being equal, consumers prefer sustainable products and they expect ethically produced products, but they are not willing to pay a price premium for the most part. And very crucially, the most important factors for consumers is whether, if they will buy an item, is whether they perceive the item as fitting their style. Fashion consumption is all about pleasure and creativity and sorting through a vast selection of choice, color, fit, and style. This means sustainability will always be a subordinate consideration in the shopping process. If we look at the use phase, the nice consumer may not have the skills or resources to mend garments. She may not know that cold water wash is just as effective in cleaning them, or that dry cleaning and drying clothes have high impacts in terms of chemical toxicity and energy use. And she may not appreciate the importance of care labels if she can interpret them correctly. Finally, when she is done with the garment, the infrastructure for responsible recycling is underdeveloped. Charity shops are struggling under the weight of cast-off garments, and many stay buried in closets for years before being tossed impatiently into rubbish destined for landfills. But we do not want you to be discouraged. We know that changing consumer attitudes and behavior is possible. Our research into dozens of sustainable consumption campaigns revealed 10 successful campaigns that we referenced in the report. These campaigns focused on a range of specific behavior changes, including relaxing fashion norms in Japan, reducing automobile use and speeds in Europe, and reducing energy consumption by turning lights off around the world. These campaigns reached large numbers of consumers and resulted in significant impact reductions as documented in the appendix of our report. We looked at some of the attributes of these campaigns to identify what made them successful. These include high-profile launch events with endorsements from well-known leaders, long-term investments in awareness raising, specific, targeted, and easy requests for consumers to change their behavior, and leveraging social pressure to make sure that the changes stick. Most interestingly, all of these campaigns involved multiple types of partners from business, from government, and from civil society, which points to the importance of partnerships. We also identified the efforts underway within the fashion industry to move us towards sustainable fashion consumption. For example, the concept of buying less and buying smarter was highlighted by a Patagonia "Don't Buy This Jacket" advertisement in major newspapers late last year. In addition, designers such as Titania Inglis and many others have started to experiment with more sustainable materials, construction, and even business models. And of course, the NICE project has been working in this area to help shape industry trends for years. Our report includes many more examples of work in this area, which we'll discuss further in future webinars. We see a great opportunity for long-term and high-impact collaboration to achieve sustainable fashion consumption. We believe it is essential that the stakeholders in the fashion industry continue and expand their efforts in this area. In this report, we suggested differentiated and complementary roles for industry, government, and civil society, and we are actively seeking input on the best ways to take this work forward. At the end of the day, we want to catalyze action so that the NICE consumer is a savvy and sustainable shopper. She can wear, care, and repair her fashion collection over the long term, and she has good options when she is ready to part with a particular dress, bag, or pair of shoes.